Slurpty-diddly-doo, my G's. Before we get into today's video, a couple of shout-outs. So big ups to Arnold Dawson, big ups to Infinite Durr, Mike Briggs, Averell SB, Sophia D&B, shout out to Rob Barrel, shout out to my patron Ride, shout out to Mr. Arez237, big ups to Mind Manipulation, big ups to Comet Dubs, Bagot Music as well, and also Jadu Par, thank you, and shout out to Gradient C7Y, and also Nathan Woodruff. Big ups to you guys for your comments recently. And yeah, today I thought, you know, haven't done a phase plant video for a while, so let's have a little morning coffee phase plant sound design tutorial. Gonna keep it nice and short and sweet today, but here is the sound that I made in phase plant this morning. It sounds like this. Yeah, really like the movement, the tonality and the power on this one, and I've called it the coffee power because I would not have made it if I had not got out of bed, and I would not have got out of bed unless I had 4 coffees. So yeah, so let's talk about the patch then. Basically, what we have is 3 sine waves essentially to create the foundation of the bass. And the first 2 sine waves are carriers, so we're doing like a frequency modulation chain, right? So there's, you know, you can do so much just with frequency modulation and sine waves, especially with all the effects options you've got in phase plant. It's like, it's great, you know, it doesn't have to be super complicated. But so the first sine wave is going to run into the second one, and the second one's going to run into the third one, and we're only going to use the output from the third one. All right, so but let me turn the level back on for the first one for a moment so you can hear it, because what I've done is I've put a really fast LFO on the level of the first one. So a classic sine wave with the level going from 0 up to 200%, and yeah, modulated here on this LFO at 3.26, all off the grid, but quite nice and fast. And so that's how it sounds to begin with. We can add on our second LFO already, and basically this one, I've set the output to modulate the speed of the first one. So now we can have an effect where the modulation speeds up and slows down again. So that's cool for the bass line. So that gave it this, you know, yeah, this like just change in speed, which can, you know, create a nice bit of tension. Anyway, so that's the first part. But now we're going to run this one into the next sine wave. So opening up a second sine wave here. And yeah, now we can turn the gain off for the first one, so there's no output there. And then we'll set the output of the first one here to go into the phase of the second sine wave. Okay, and that's all that's happening here. Yeah. So our first sine wave is at 0, and the second one down here we're dropping 2 octaves down to -24, and we set the phase, the FM amount on the phase to go to the right at +54 units. So it sounds like this now if I turn this one up. Okay, and I've just actually applied a little high pass filter on this one. So I've just thrown this in here. So we're actually taking out all of the low end again. So we just kind of got the mid-range. Okay, so nothing else going on there apart from that. Then we're going to take the gain off on that again. So you won't be able to hear it, but we'll set the output from this one into the FM on our third oscillator, which is again a sine wave. This one's at -23, so a bit of natural detuning. And here we set the FM onto the phase, but put it to the left this time. Also -54, so same kind of amount. And so now we've got the final result of the oscillator section, you know? So that's the actual final result for the first part of the patch. So you've got, what you can hear is you can hear kind of a low, powerful sub bass, but in addition to that, you've got this mid-range wobbling sine wave movement as well. So you've kind of got 2 parts to the sound. Okay, but that's how it finishes like that. And all the rest of the magic is now done in the effects section. So yeah, quite simple with the sine waves at the beginning, just getting some movement in. And once that's done, we can move over here to lane 1. And for lane 1, all I've put on is an overdrive to start things off. So sort of saturates the sound nicely together, gives the low end a bit more power. Then I've got a non-linear filter on the digital mode. The drive is all the way up, and I'm using the filter in this kind of flat line mode. So it's actually a way that you can just add the color of the non-linear filter without actually necessarily filtering things out, because the filter has lots of great colors. And so the digital mode with the drive all the way up, and I pretty much left the rest of the settings how they were. But yeah, that gave me a really nice cohesion to the mid-range and a nice bit of crunch in the high end. Then I've done something a bit strange, which is where I've used the comb filter in stereo mode at 33% to add like some extra wider harmonics, which sound really nice. It's like a little bit too overkill if it's on 100%, but at 33% I get quite a lot of stereo information in there. So it's a nice way you can add a stereo interest. Sometimes you can do it with a global unison, or you can do it with chorusing or ensemble, for example. But the comb filter on the stereo mode is another way you can make the sound stereo, and it will do it slightly differently. And I like this method actually to giving a stereo signal in a nice, unique way. Now what I've done, this is where it gets good, right? This is where in the middle section, this is our like sort of almost like a parallel processing chain. And here I've turned the mix on this lane down to 0, and I'm just mixing up and down the effect of this channel that we're about to open up on the LFO, okay? And so for this channel, I've done 100% reverb. And then I've actually processed the reverb by putting a pitch shifter on it to change the tonality, and then EQ'd it afterwards. So we first have this eerie loading dock reverb, which gives all these extra like new brighter harmonics, and it's a convolution reverb, so they're sort of it's like a new sample into the sound. And I've actually changed the start position to make the reverb tighter. I've brought it right to the end, and I've faded it out. I've turned the tone up to make it really bright. And again, remember it's mixing in here. The whole reverb effect is being mixed in on the LFO down here. And then I've done a pitch shifter, which basically can bring the reverb down a whole octave, and we mix that in sort of halfway. So it's kind of like got a low notes to the reverb as well as the main one. So it kind of made it a little bit duller, but also added newer harmonics and made it a little bit more evil sounding. Okay, and then I actually EQ the reverb, most of the low end to come out. So you hear a little bit less of the lower octave pitch shifted version, but it's still in there. It's still in the character, you know. So that's then mixing in this reverb kind of convolution layer on top of everything. And now we're going to like reprocess everything together again with a bunch of distortion. And this is where the sound finally comes to life then. And here is where I've added the shaper, and I've used the snus mode, which is great. And here we've absolutely slammed everything together. Everything that we'd set up before, our nice interesting sine wave movement, putting that extra character and tonality on with the non-linear filter, making it stereo with the comb filter, then adding in like a convolution reverb signal to the sound as well, and then now massively shaping all of that with the shaper to bring all of those details together and to life and to a great level of power. Okay, and the snus mode is just on the complex shapes in the shaper, and yeah, it's pretty extreme. If we'd done, if we'd probably used like saw waves or square waves, this would probably be too much. But because I kept things quite clean with sine waves, then I was able to add on like a big amount of distortion, and then through that able to generate in really interesting mid-range harmonics without hurting our ears so much. And then I've added a tiny bit of another convolution reverb, just a white blur 50 millisecond mixed in just 7 or 8% to just give it slightly soften the sound and give a slight extra bit of stereo width to everything. And at that point, it's really done. I've really slammed it already. You know, everything worked so well through the shaper at the end, and it just really completed the sound. So that's the Coffee Power phase plant bass. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope that just gives you a little bit of inspiration today for your sound design, for your drum and bass music production journey. I'll see you on the other side of the music production journey on the island where we all meet in the palace and have our own rooms and have our own little studios in a utopia of drum and bass producers. I'll see you there. More from me very soon. Take care. Much love.